Well, welcome back to another episode of Behind the Visual with Mark Hansen. I'm your host, Mark Hansen. I'm a lifestyle and advertising photographer, and I'm also doing this podcast where I bring to you all the people who are behind those visuals you see out in the world, whether it's videos or stills, ad campaigns, commercials, that kind of thing. And today I have associate producer for Omnicon Productions, Cleo Montagnana. And today we talk about all kinds of stuff. We talk about where Cleo grew up in France. We talk about how she got into producing, what her life was before, or how she got to New York. We talk about that because she lives in New York now. We talk about how she got from France to New York. We also talk about AI. We talk about cost consultants and how the job they're doing is the job they're doing, whether you like it or not. That's the job. We're talking about how she finds photographers, whether she uses source books or whether she just uses her own group of people around her, her own resources to find out photographers. We talk about her favorite shoot, which involved dogs. I think you guys are really going to like hearing about that. We also talk about her biggest goal, what she thinks about the difference between videos and stills, and a whole lot of other things. She also gives her advice on being a photographer, I mean, being a producer, and if you want to be a producer, the skills and the personality you need to have to be a producer. So those are a few of the things, you know. So check it out. Let me know what you think. I think you're gonna enjoy this one. Lots of cool stuff to talk about on here, and love hearing from Cleo and her thoughts on everything. So check it out. Let me know what you guys think. Like it, thumbs up it, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And here we go. So let's start. So tell me
Mhm.
about where you grew up.
So I grew up in France on the border of Germany in a little town called Strasbourg.
Right.
It's one of the capitals of Europe. It's where you have the European Council and stuff like that. So very early on, I was growing up in a very multicultural environment. We had people from all over the world in school with me. My best friends were like Italian, Spanish, Argentinian, Russian, Ukrainian. Like it was literally from everywhere around the world, which was amazing. And I think gave me kind of a very universal perspective on a lot of things. Plus living in France, it's a lot of socialism.
Yeah.
So very much going into a socialist and multicultural environment. And I think it's been really beneficial for me. I was in international schools growing up, so I was in the German section because my mother is German. So I went to school, in French, but I also had history lessons in Germany and grammar lessons in German, sorry, and grammar lessons in German and stuff like that. And then they introduced us in like sixth grade to a third language, which for me was English. And so I felt already having like good tools to kind of move into a more international setting. Um, and so when that opportunity came, when my mother had a work opportunity here, I was the only one of my siblings still in high school. So that would have, the only easy move pretty much. My older siblings were already, working and studying. And so they didn't really want to be uprooted. Um, and so we came here when I was 17, so 10 years ago. And I did, I my high school diploma is from the French High School of New York. And I was supposed to go back to France and study international law.
Oh, wow.
But yeah,
Wow.
very different from where I
Yeah.
am now. I cannot tell you how happy I am. I decided to stay here. Uh, and yeah, I ended up, realizing that it wasn't really what I wanted to do, and have been having lived in New York only 1 year, felt like it wasn't the end of it just yet.
Yeah.
And so I decided to stay, and we're here 10 years later. So that's fun. And so I went to college here. I did community college at the MCC, which is downtown Manhattan, in which I took a script writing class
Oh,
that I
cool.
fell in love with. The professor is was super cool. I'm still on his newsletter,
Yeah.
and he's a great person that was able to like kind of open us up to the love of cinema and script writing, and it was really cool. It was one of my favorite classes for sure. We would watch movies and make presentations about them, and so that led me to move towards a film production
Yeah.
major. And so I went to do my bachelor at City College, and graduated in 2021, right during COVID. That
Oh,
was
nice.
kind of lame, but I was happy to have experienced the campus. It's a really beautiful campus, above Columbia, in Manhattan. So at least I got to be on that campus for like a little year, let's say a
Yeah.
short year, until we went fully remote. But yeah, and so after college, I started working in a smaller production house in Long Island City in Queens, called BBDO, and they're also big on equipment rental. So I got to get a little more interested into the actual equipment
Yeah.
and putting a set together, breaking a set, assisting with light, assisting with sound. So it was really nice. I got a lot of very raw experiences from that, and right out of college. So it really felt like a continuation of what
Yeah.
I was learning. So that was absolutely beautiful.
How was
And
what
I
you
loved it.
learned? How was what you learned in college? So all the stuff you learned once you graduated and went to DV, was stuff you were learning doing that? You're like, wow, they didn't teach us any of this in college. Because I know people have gone, I didn't go to art school. So I know photographers who went and they came out and they really knew nothing as far as
Mm,
like how the business worked, and they had to learn a lot once they got out into it.
yeah.
And I've even had assistants who came from, there was a art school here, and there, I had some photography majors come help me out. And I had one who didn't know how to raise a C stand. And it was costing her
Wow.
$100,000, I think, for the whole program or close to it. And I was like, can you raise that C stand up? And she just looked at it and she's like, how do I do this? And
Oof.
I was like,
Yeah,
you need to ask for
that's
your
not
money
ideal.
back.
Yes, that is not ideal. We did learn about equipment at school, so that it was where I was a little more well versed.
Yeah.
I mean, anything from tripods to camera and lights, sound. What was nice in college is that we were able to kind of execute all the jobs by working on each other's
Oh, yeah.
mini
That's cool.
productions. So for one friend, I was the boom person. For the other one, I was camera assistant, and for the other one, I would do lighting or stuff like that. So I got to touch a little bit of everything. I'm not saying that I was an expert coming into
Right.
it, but I had a base at least. I
Yeah.
felt like. So when they would ask me to break down the C stand or break down the tripod and check it for any dings or whatever could have
Yeah.
happened during a production, I kind of knew. I knew what I was
Right.
doing. But working with them really, really helped me kind of hone that and touch everything and stuff that were also more high grade because
Mhm.
I was working with my kind of student equipment that it was great. We were able to rent it from the school and stuff, but it wasn't mine or
Right.
it wasn't top gear and stuff. Like not necessarily, let's say, industry standard equipment.
Yeah.
So going to a professional rental and production house really helped me, I think, hone in on this and on the whole equipment aspect.
Yeah.
Definitely the thing where I felt I was a little less knowledgeable in was how to run pretty much a business, the production business, and the producer job it was a very vague concept to me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we've had teachers in college that were producers and trying to explain to us, but every time they wanted to ask, what do you want to do? This is do you want to be a cinematographer? You want to be editor? Like, who wants to be a producer?
Right.
Nobody would raise their
Right.
hand. And it's like, I would, but I don't know what it is. So,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's a little tricky to explain to college students who don't necessarily have professional experience yet, um,
Mhm.
what producing can mean. So eventually we all went to produce our own thesis, right? But when it's a self-produced thing, it's more like a home project, I want to say.
Yeah.
Whereas when I see now what is required for producing, it's like it's nothing of what I did back then. It also makes sense, because it
Yeah.
wasn't on the same scale and it wasn't for the same things at all. Um, but it is a whole new job that I learned. That's
How would
for
you,
sure.
if you had to explain to somebody what being a producer is now, how would you explain it to them?
I would say it's a little bit like an event planner
Yeah.
or the organizer of the shoot, pretty much. Yeah. Organizer, helping hand, therapist sometimes.
Yeah.
It can be
Yeah.
a mix of a lot of things, but I want to say that mostly it's about and organization and probably, knowledge of the job and what is required and kind of having all of that at the top of your head so that you can answer all the questions that are being answered on a set, which is a
Hmm.
lot
Lot.
and very often. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So when you were a kid, were you that type of person? Like, were you, could you see, like, now if you look back and saw yourself as a kid, go, okay, I can see how those traits or what I did then led me into being a producer? Because my
Yes.
daughter, my oldest, my dad used to call her the directress because she wanted to
Oh,
tell
yeah.
everybody what to do and have everything done a certain way and like do this kind of thing. And so I didn't know if like when you were a kid, if you were looking back and like, yeah, I can see that. I was,
Yeah. Always a little bit of my personality.
yeah,
Always, loving to do anything art related. Um, and yeah, putting on little shows with my friends or plays. I was a theater kid, so
yeah,
I also did that. Obviously, I wasn't directing, but all that gave me the experience of like being directed. And at some point, I was like, okay, my turn.
right.
you know. So yeah, I've kind of always imagined that it would go towards something similar, not necessarily directress or, boss or whatever, but yes, I always knew what I wanted, was firm about it, and yeah, I have to say it's how I've been going about things in life, and so far it works. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna hang on to it.
So I was trying to think between BBDO and everything else, but there's a lot that
Hmm.
goes into being a producer. And I mean, you guys, I'll have like I have a shoot we're planning right now for this farmer thing. And
Hmm.
I asked my producer, like, here's, what the parameters of the shoot are, here's what I'm thinking. And she came back and then she asked me, like, she had a list of just like, I thought I had it all basically figured out. I thought, well, here's
Hmm.
what we're gonna do for location, here's what we're gonna do, for assistants, models, all this stuff. I kind of had it figured out. I gave her like half-assed estimate, as timeline and all that. And she looked at it and she came back with like question after question after question after question. It's like this, and I think this, and this. And I was just looking at it going,
Mm.
well, thank you, God. And it
Yeah, it's a
happens
lot of that.
almost every single shoot when I do that. Like I'll send out, I think I got it covered. And because I thought, well, I've learned from last time. And every single time my producer comes back with, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or do you think about this? Or we're
Yeah.
going to need this too. And are we going to need this? And I'm like, God. So thank God for producers.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely what I've been experiencing too, and I'm so thankful to my amazing manager, Erin Bryn, um, who's kind of has this checklist of her head. So every time we get started on a job and whatever, she's like, "All right." So she goes down the list, and I'm taking notes, and I'm like, and I'm writing the questions like, do we have this, and is this going to be good for that, and we're planning on out of home, like, and stuff like that, you know. So we have that checklist that we try to run through. Also, in a big way, I want to say to protect our butts,
Yeah.
because if something kind of goes wrong, it's going to be like, well, production chef out of that, which is true, you know. So it's kind of our job to anticipate any kind
Mhm.
of potential issue, quirk, like whatever can arise, and learn how to pivot on this pretty fast, calmly, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's a very important trait of the producer, is to definitely be um to have a good handle on their emotions,
Mhm.
and take a big step back on things, because sometimes things feel very personal, but they're not at all.
Yeah.
And after all, we're all human, so yes, sometimes it happens that production miss a tiny thing, and we always strive not to,
Right.
obviously,
Oh yeah.
but we are human, and errors happen, and not every shoot can go perfectly well, you
Right.
know. But yes, that checklist, I still have to really, I think I need a few more shoots until it's really like printed into my brain.
Right.
But for now, I'm lucky enough that I have a great manager who's more than willing to still teach and go over, you know, estimates with me, and talk numbers and solutions. So um, I I I am like, thank God for her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, thank God for a producer. I'm like, thank God for my manager.
Do you guys have do you have are you guys working with cost consultants on every shoot?
Um, so not for every shoot, but we have some clients that do use cost consultant. A big, like one that I worked with is AT&T.
Uh,
We often work with cost consultants on these. I know that Bacardi also has cost consultants often. But for example, I've worked on plenty jobs without one. You know, I've done FedEx, Pedigree. These didn't have a cost consultant. I wonder what, you know, I think I still need more experience maybe with really big clients, and
yeah.
maybe they are the ones who tend to get in um, a cost supervisor. But yeah, you know, it's been my experience. I have done it a little bit, and
Have you
I'm
found that
also
because we were just talking about it on set this earlier this week about cost consultants, and I've noticed that there are literally times where there's like a shoot for this. It was like a Fortune 100 company we were doing a shoot for, and their producer at the company came back to me, and we were friends. We worked together multiple times with this company,
mhm.
and they came back to me, and she said they want to know if you can come down on the overall price any or on your price at all. And I said, and we'd already come down multiple
Okay.
times. So I looked at her and I was like, seriously? And she's like, yeah. I said, all right, drop it $100. And she said, okay. She came back to me an hour later and said, that worked. Thanks. All they want to know is that they could get you to come down.
Mm, mm,
And
mm,
when we were talking about it on set today, my client was telling me, he's like, man, because we have that all the time. Like they just want to get you to come down, even if it's just a little bit, to know that you will,
yeah.
and they get a cut. So they get a percentage of how much they save, the client. So
Oh,
their
I
whole
didn't know
goal in
that.
life is to save as much as possible. So they up the amount of money that they have.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
That is a little trick that I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought they were like legit with the company getting paid a certain amount of money and then that they were looking just like that
Yeah.
seems way too high for catering, drop that down, a thousand
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
dollars or something. But evidently
And
they
then you
get,
end up with catering that's not that good, and
yeah,
you're
they
like,
end up with like, sandwiches from Subway and,
yeah.
and chips from Sam's.
Yay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, no, really. I mean, yeah, the ones that I've worked with, they've always asked for less and less, and I tend to be pretty protective of my vendors because I like to keep good relationships going. So if a cost consultant comes back being like, let's say it's the second round of going through them, and they're like, well, no, I'm sorry, this needs to come back down again. I have no problem pushing back and being like, well, this is actually the industry rate, and this is what his last shoot was going for. And, you know, I think it's important to also sometimes stand up for the people who are going to do like the big of the work for you
Yeah.
and treat them well, which is at least my goal. And I found so far that it helps me keeping good relationships with, you know, the photographers I've worked with the post house I work with, transparency and just, you know, not being a yes man to the
Yeah.
company or other,
Yeah.
um, can be good. It can be good, and I wish that sometimes we had account people who would do that a little more, but I also totally understand that their job is basically to say yes to the client and make it come true,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just important that they kind of keep us in the realm of reality, let's say,
Yeah.
um, which sometimes does not happen. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's up to production to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've had plenty of those where it's like we got to have it done. Like the one I'm working on now, they just came back and we had cut about as much as we could cut. And they just came back and like, all right, we're going to award you the job. We need you to cut it like 20 to 25 grand though. I was like, there was
But
no,
that's not awarding then.
yeah.
What is
So yeah,
that?
they're like, the job is yours, but you need to cut it 20 to 25,000. And I think we were able to cut it. Wait, no, it was like 20. No, it was 30 to 30, 25 to 30,000 is what they need to cut. And I came back and was
Huge.
like, we got rid of like we really looked at it. I talked to everybody. My producer talked to, hair and makeup, props, all that wardrobe, and they decided that they probably could go without assistance except for the shoot days that they didn't need them for pre and post. And I mean, we were cutting
Mm-hmm.
little stuff like that and just cutting and cutting and cutting. And we got it down. I think we ended up getting it down like 20 grand somehow. But then again, I
Wow.
gave up a lot on my end. I didn't cut my rate, but I gave up a
Right.
lot of, like rental fees, digital fees. We gave up,
Yeah.
I told them I would take care of, normally my producer does the casting. I was like, listen, I'll take care of casting. I have a good relationship with the agency we're going to go through and I'll just do it for free.
Okay.
That kind of stuff. So that's how we were end up able to do it. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
sometimes they come back and hit you hard with like, after you've already cut down. But I wasn't cutting rates on my crew. I was like, they're already, I'm not asking them to cut their rates anymore.
No, I agree. It's like at some point you if you want the job well done, you have to give compensation that's
Yeah,
reasonable. Like
right.
it just makes sense. Particularly when you work for big clients, big agencies. Like you're really gonna make me believe that I don't know, like Kellogg's can put another 20 grand. Like please, like
Yeah.
come
Oh, I know.
on. So
My
yeah,
favorite's when they tell you here's our budget, and you come in and then you come in like right on budget, or maybe you're
yeah,
slightly over, slightly under, and they go okay, and then they start adding stuff. And they go, okay, well, we need to
right,
add this shot to it, or we need to add this to it. Okay, well, that's going to cost this much. So like, well, that's okay. We can
yeah.
do that. And like, where was this to begin with? You know?
Hmm.
And but it's interesting how all of a sudden they can find money when they want it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For what they need slash want, yeah, they can buy
Uh-huh.
money.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also extremely rare that um that we would, you know, share a budget, at least in my experience, when you want to try and be transparent, right? When you don't have a huge budget, when you reach out, you at least give the budget that you're working with so that you don't put the artist in a situation where they're like, well, I don't like that you do that, first of all.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a reflection on the agency. So not good. And it just doesn't want to make them like come back to work with you. I don't, I, and I truly believe that a good vendor relationship
Hmm.
can take you very far. Like the work can be better. Like people are in a better mood on set, and sometimes it just brings out better work.
Oh yeah. I mean, I did
It
one
does.
just this week on Tuesday. I did a shoot. I was not planning to shoot. I got a call from this guy who owns a production company that I really like. We've worked on multiple jobs together, and I like him a lot, and we get along really well. And he's always been good to me. And he called and was like, "Hey, are you working tomorrow?" And I was like,
Mm,
"I'm editing video, but I'm not actually going to be, out shooting or anything. So no, I mean, I've got the day open. What do you need?" And he said that basically he had a shooter that was basically going to go behind them while they were shooting video and help out, assist a little bit on setting
mm,
up some interviews and stuff. And he said he had to call out. He's having a rough time or something. I don't remember what it was, but he was like, he's not going to be able to make the shoot. And he never calls out last minute. So I was just calling to see if you're available. And I was like, yeah, I'll go help you. I can do, I can do whatever. And it didn't occur to me until the very end of the phone call where he's like, well, I can give you, and he gave me the amount of money he could pay me. I didn't even think about the money. I didn't even ask him about how much
mm.
he paid because I just knew that he would take care of me and I liked him. And as a group,
Right.
they've always been good to me. And so I knew didn't even think about the money. I was just like, you know what, I'll go help him out. I would have done it if
Yeah.
it had been like, free. I'd still be like, you know what, you need help. It's a last minute thing. You're not trying to screw me over. It's just you're in a tough
Yeah.
situation. So I'll go help you. And I'll do it. So I
Which
agree.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think human connections are a big part of the job. Particularly because if you don't make the connection, people don't necessarily remember your face, your name, the experience they had with you, or it can also go, complete 180 and things don't go well and
Yeah.
they'll remember you and
Oh
they're
yeah.
like, I don't want to work with them. Thank you. That happens too. That
Oh
happens
yeah.
too.
Oh, absolutely. So how did you
So
get to
yeah.
BBDO?
So BBDO, I was introduced to BBDO through Jasmine Batista,
Okay.
who had been a producer with them for almost 20 years. Um, so I was able to submit my resume to her at a moment where they were just looking for somebody very junior. So that timing I was extremely lucky with that, I have to
Yeah.
say. And in my opinion, that's kind of how job finding works. The timing has to be right.
Hmm.
And timing hasn't been right in a while, if you ask me. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
back then it
Right.
was
Yeah.
3.5 years ago. It was amazing timing. And so she introduced my resume to the team, and I was able to get an interview, and we did a couple of interviews, and they were like, "Okay, well, we'll give you a try," and here we are.
Very cool.
So yeah, no, that was amazing. I was coached a lot by the person who had my job before me. I'm not sure if you know her, Lizzie Len. She's now
I think I may have like emailed back and forth with her once or twice, but have never met
possibly.
her in person. Yeah.
Possibly. She's amazing. She's a great producer. She's now more on the video side of things.
Mhm.
And she's left Omnicom. She's now in a agency in LA. But so I arrived in this 100% women team, which I loved.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
yeah, and with people who had been there for like a really long time. So I felt like I was in really good hands to kind of get started,
Yeah.
because it's always scary, it's your first big agency jobs.
Hmm.
I didn't know what I was gonna end up with, if people were gonna be nice. Like, I've heard advertising is very cutthroat, like you're not sure who you're gonna meet and work with, and you have all these apprehensions, right, when you don't really know where you're going.
Yeah.
And so yeah, from this first week, I think I was in good hands, and realized that it was going to be good, and it was going to be okay, and I was going to be able to learn, because it's also kind of a fear when you start a new job.
Hmm.
In a lot of places, people don't necessarily take the time to teach you
Yeah.
how things go, and then can get very frustrated if you don't do things the way they need,
Uh-huh.
but you're not being taught. So
Right.
it's kind of a problem here. Um, So I was extremely lucky to find this group of women who have been amazing to me and taught me so much and amazing mentors. And yeah, so it's been 3.5 years. So I think I like it.
Yeah, that's good.
I think I like it. Yeah.
Very cool. So, what's been your favorite part of the job so far since you've been there?
Probably being on shoots for
Yeah.
sure. Um,
Is there a shoot, like one shoot that's been your favorite that's just stood out?
yes, but it's also I'm very biased. I'm a dog lover. I
Uh,
foster dogs and everything. But we did a project with Pedigree and Spotify. It was my second year at BBDO, and we went to shoot in a dog shelter in New Jersey, and we took pictures of the long stay dogs that had been there for a while, and we worked with an illustrator who put those dog portraits onto kind of classic um, album covers,
oh, that's cool.
kind of revisited because of course we couldn't, copyright infringement and stuff,
Right.
but
Yeah.
we had so we did different styles of music instead of kind of imitating an album cover. So we did jazz, pop, uh like rock, but the Kiss rock era kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
um a couple other ones, disco. And so we ended up, so we did that with this illustrator. He incorporated the portrait of the dogs in the portraits, and then those album covers went on Spotify to promote the adoption.
Oh,
And
wow.
so the dog that was in the picture, you had a link at the end of their bio, whatever, that brought you to the pet finder page where you could actually adopt the dog. So
That's
that
cool.
was amazing. Like, I love this project so much. We ended up doing some wild postings downtown, and we had some vinyls covers made,
Really?
and like actual vinyls too.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually have one that I kept. I'm like, this is mine. I I worked on this. Everybody was trying to grab one as soon as possible, and I was able to bring the one back. And I was also able to give one to my parents, who really love the concept too, and are also dog lovers. So yeah, no, that was
Great.
definitely that's the project that I feel has made the most impact on the world, and definitely one that the project that has brought a lot of my passions together.
Do your parents
So
live
yeah,
here? Do your parents live in New York?
my mother does, and I was actually living with her until not too long ago,
Okay.
and my father is in France. Yeah.
Okay. Do you go out and
Mm.
see them often?
I try to go a couple times a year
Yeah. Okay.
during the summer and for the winter holidays. And I'm actually going to be an aunt this summer for the first
Oh,
time
very
ever.
cool.
So it's very exciting. So I'm planning to go there for a little bit too. Yeah.
Ah. So how old are your siblings?
I'm the youngest one. I have an older brother who's turning 30 this summer, which is very weird for me. And my older sister she's from 91, so she is going to be 34.
Okay.
That's, yeah,
Wow.
so weird. For me, they stopped at like 16
Right.
and 12. So, so being like my brother that I'm extremely close to, and like turning 30 is like a,
Yeah.
but we're
Hey,
getting there. I'm getting there as well.
it's better than the alternative. So I always say when somebody complains
Absolutely.
about getting old, I'm like, you got two choices. You can either continue to get old or you cannot. And
Exactly. Which,
which would you rather? Hey, I got it. So in France, do they have a thing against AC or against air conditioning? Because I know my daughter's in Italy right now, and evidently it's a
yeah.
cultural thing where they don't like air conditioning. They have it, but they won't
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah. In France, it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
Europe as a whole is not a fan of AC in general. And I want to say that like the housing is also not at all planned for the kind of ACs that we have here, for example.
Right.
We tend to have fans a lot. But honestly, I mean, it's my father, who was always a big like AC hater, now has an AC because it's also getting very hot in Paris, and he has a bulldog, and he wants his bulldog to be comfortable, and so I think we're getting there. But yeah, definitely Italy. I can see them being especially being such a southern country. The heat is kind of part of their
Yeah,
identity,
yes.
you know? It makes for rough summers. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, the last summers, and then in Paris, I remember we had the shades closed and the fans full on like all day, and it's hard to sleep at night. Yeah,
Yeah. So my daughter's over there and she's getting like eaten by mosquitoes and because they're leaving the
yeah.
windows open. And yeah, so I don't know. There's nothing I can do
It's
about it.
very different.
Yeah.
Very, very different. It's a culture thing for sure.
Yeah.
And I think they love to complain about it, but the truth is, if they had it, they'd probably use it. I mean, like everything, right? But
Yeah.
also now with energy costing a lot of money in Europe, that
Uh,
could also be a participating factor to our already AC hating culture,
right.
you know?
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a big shock for them when they come to visit the US, and anywhere you enter, it's like minus 15 degrees
Right.
from
Yeah.
outside, and they're like, oh my God, it's so cold. And at first I was kind of like that too, and you get used to it, really. You really do. But yeah, no, Europeans not big fans of ACs. A lot of closing the shades in the summer and leaving
Yeah.
the windows open. That's the way that they kind of cool off. You know, I'm sorry for your daughter.
Well, she's putting up with it, so yeah, I guess
I'm sure. Where is she in Italy?
she's in Florence.
Hmm,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would take being hot and being in Florence. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay.
She got a student visa for a year, so she'll be there for a year
It's
with her
amazing.
boyfriend. Yeah.
When did she leave?
2 weeks ago, maybe? No,
Oh
wait,
wow,
wait.
so it's the
Yeah.
start of it.
Just 2 weeks ago today. Well, it's the 10th. She left on the
Okay.
no, 6th, 7th. She left on the 7th. So what's that? Just
Okay.
only, yeah,
Yeah,
almost
just
a
a week
week.
ago.
Yeah, just a week ago.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the 10th is like 3 days ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's gonna be amazing. What a cool experience. Has
Yeah.
she lived abroad beforehand?
She's been there before. She did a study abroad a year and a half ago in January, like went in
Hmm.
February through May, met a boy, came home, went back for 3 months, came
Right.
home, went back for 2.5 months, came home, and now she's back for a year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it goes.
Yeah.
I would be lying if I said a boy wasn't also part of my decision to stay in New York, quite
Yeah.
honestly. So I get it. And
Yeah.
there's worse place to be in the world than Florence, clearly.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
totally agree. So when you mentioned like your relationship with your photographers and your production houses and stuff like that. How do you find those people? How do you find photographers? And do they help you find like a production house, or do you find those on your own as well? And I mean, how do you find them?
Photographers, a lot of time I get kind of a mood board from creatives if I'm lucky. Otherwise, it's more kind of a description, vague description, and do
Yeah.
what you will with that. Um, but when I am looking for a photographer, you know, I kind of get in search mode, meaning that I go through pretty much all of my bookmarks
Yeah.
and see what can work. Whatever can work, I put on the list, and I tend to send, like a list of 10 to 15 names, and then we
Right.
revise
Right.
until they found the free that they like. If we're doing like a triple big kind of thing. Um, there are different scenarios though. If it's a smaller project, and we um, if it's a smaller project, smaller budget, we tend to either go to photographers we've already worked with and already have um relationship with, in the sense where it's kind of, if you help me out here, I'll definitely help you out on the next one.
Right.
And that's also how I tend to protect them. Like, if you help us do this rate this time, next time I got you on your next one, we'll try and give you more, you know. Um, so that's been my experience so far, and it's been, you know, it's been working.
How do you get to where they're bookmarked for you? Is it word of mouth? Do you use source books at all? Like workbook or
I
found or
don't
any of
use
that kind of
workbook,
stuff?
but I use, what
Or
is
Ad
the name of
Edge
the
or
one?
anything like that?
Is it at Edge? Hold on, let me check. Uh, I bookmark basically, you know, I get a lot of
I'm
emails
sure.
almost
Yeah.
every day,
Mhm.
and
How
from
many on
there, very
average do you get
often
every day promo emails from photographers?
from for photographers, oh, an average a day, I want to say 10.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, you know, some of it is automated, you know, not everything is. So what do I use? This is Wonderful Machine I
Oh yeah.
use.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Sound is not bad. I also have this website that's exclusively for Black women photographers.
Okay.
What else do I have?
Do
I
you
have kind of like, yeah,
do you go to
diversified
those
photo.
if you're looking for, say you get your direction on what they're looking for, a mood board. If you don't have somebody immediately in mind, do you go to Wonderful Machine and Found first and start looking, or do you go to your bookmarks and start checking off that way first?
I tend to do bookmark first
Yeah.
because I have those artist directory, but then I also have all my representation bookmarks,
Hmm.
which is the big of it, quite honestly. So it's very often going through those. Then I have, you know, a list for rep for illustration rep. I have a little like production house thing if we have to go with a production house of our choosing. But just to come back on your question earlier, yes, most of the time it is like we're. I'd rather let the photographer go with the production house that he's comfortable with if he has one, and if he's, you know, if it's theirs or somebody's, I know, I don't really care as long as they're, you know, good
Yeah.
and they work well together. That's all I ask. So that's why I tend to kind of push more whichever pick they have if they have one. Otherwise, you know, we're happy to work with production houses that we worked with before, or you know, that's bookmarked,
Yeah.
or word of mouth also between other producers. And then I have also my bookmarks for photographers who are not represented, so I like kind of solo representation.
Yeah.
That list is also pretty packed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a lot of links and stuff to
Oh,
go
sure.
through. I
Do you
think
have them
maybe in a
separated
few.
out so you can tell like this is more of a lifestyle, this is more product, this is more fashion, this is more, you know,
Not really. Not
post?
really. They're more separated by maybe I should though, but that would make such endless categories, I
Yeah,
think,
well,
because you
yeah,
have
I'm
so many
sure.
that are doing more. I started by putting all my rep house in one bookmark, and then when I saw that there were some doing exclusively illustration slash CGI slash, I was like, okay, I'm gonna need to differentiate at least that because
Yeah.
otherwise it's gonna take me forever. And I think I still need a few more years of experience before I'm like, I know a name when, you know, when creatives come to me being like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I definitely, yeah, I need to get more familiar with everybody who's work and get more experience working with photographers. You know, so far I have not reworked with a photographer, which I would love to do at some point. Kind of work again with somebody that, you know, we've had a good experience with. And and I lost my train of thought.
It's all right. What advice would you give somebody who wants to be a producer? Like, is there any advice you would give to somebody who's thinking, you know, that sounds like a very cool job. I would love to be a producer. Like how to become a producer or what to expect once they become a producer or something like that.
I would say you definitely need a particular kind of personality.
Mhm.
Uh, you need to be pretty, you know, open and extroverted, if you ask me, right?
Yeah.
You need to be comfortable with people, pretty much.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna have a hard time getting on the phone, getting on Zoom calls, and doing book reviews and stuff like that. So that would be like I would start with your personality kind of has to match with this. Like some other jobs that doesn't require, as much and some anyway. I would say definitely yeah, personality is something you want to start with. And advice wise, be water. Flow
Yeah.
like water. There's a lot of things that are gonna come at you, good, bad, neutral, whatever. You have to learn to flow with it and not get hung up on. I was gonna say not getting hung up on emotions, so that we're still human,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's not all AI yet. But being able kind of to manage your emotions because sometimes you can feel that something is coming very bluntly at you and it's nothing personal and it's very like most of the time it's a more of a reflection of the person that's writing it than the person that's receiving it, right?
Yeah.
That's like everything in life. But so yeah, be flexible, adaptable to change, kind of quick thinking, but always staying cool, calm, and collected. I think that tends to reassure people
Yeah.
if they're stressing out to have somebody that's like, it's okay.
Oh yeah.
Not in the sense like, we don't care, it's okay. In the sense like, we're okay, we'll find a solution. And here's a solution I just thought of.
Yeah.
So, yeah, being quick on your feet, uh, having good people relations, um, a good handle on your emotions, and be prepared to work long hours too. I think that's a big one.
Right.
Although I have to say I find so much more joy personally in being on still shoots than video shoots. um Video shoots tends to be very very long days,
Hmm.
um like even longer than photography ones.
Yeah.
And it depends on the position you have, but it can be a lot of time just sitting around, and that's not made for me. So I need to move around. I need to check with the creatives how everything are going, and the photographer, like what's going on, like laugh a little bit. I just yeah, human connections.
Yeah. Oh, I get
I
it. Yeah.
guess
I was
really.
I was asked to be an extra on a set for some TV movie. A friend of mine is a casting director, and she was like, "Hey, they're looking. It's great for you. They're looking for a couple of extras to be photographers, and you can." And I was like, "All right, fine." She said, "Just bring your camera." And I went and I did like one day,
Yeah,
and I called her at the end of the day. I was like, "Do I have to come back tomorrow?" And she said, "You don't have to." No, I was like, "Good," because I'm not because that was the
yeah,
most
okay,
boring day of my life. I talked to the on-set stills photographer. We had a conversation at lunch. That was my favorite part of the day. The rest of the day was me sitting
yeah,
around and get up there and act like a photographer for 2 minutes and then sit back down again. I was like, "Yeah, I'm
yeah.
not built for this."
That has been my experience too on video shoots. Granted, I wasn't necessarily the video producer, but it seems like kind of everybody is sitting around and
Yeah,
not doing much except for and just it's video, so it takes more time, and I totally understand. And
yeah,
it's a whole other level of patience, if you ask me.
yeah.
Um, but I found on photography shoots, the ambiance is just in general more relaxed.
Hmm.
Well, is also it can depend on the people you work with
Yeah.
always, but it's I have to say that so far I have not worked with a tyrannic photographer or whoever, right, that would make the shoot day horrible. On the contrary, when we would have to like follow video, and it's kind of like the photography group is kind of the
Oh yeah,
relaxed,
yeah. You-
chill,
Well, you're also like the
chill
stepchild. You're
vibe.
like the unwanted stepchild on those shoots because you're just hoping they
Yeah,
remember that you've got to get in there and shoot as soon as they finish.
yeah.
And I think a lot of that
And
comes down, at
sometimes
least
it
for
don't
me, it's
happen.
come down to my relationship with the director before we get
Yeah.
started. As long as I can work that and we get a good rapport going between us before the shoot starts, I haven't had a problem. But if we don't really get to talk, then it can be one of those things where the producer has to go, wait, Stills has to shoot. And you go, thank you. Yeah, and they're like, all right, well,
Yeah.
hurry it up. We got to move.
That's been my experience on the last shoot is that we there was no real opportunity for the photographer and the director of video to kind of meet, get along, vibe, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
So everything goes through the line producers and everybody gets very testy and all that good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, I know.
uh
I
so
know.
yeah, that's one of the learning points that I took away from that shoot following video is that next time I definitely want to have a better rapport with the director
Yeah.
so that I'm not bickering all the time with the line producer of video and let me get the talent and no, they need to be on standby and you're not using them, so give it
Right.
to me.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
and by the end you just go and you're like, come with me, talent. Don't say anything. Just come with me.
Yeah.
They won't notice you're gone.
Yep.
And yeah, lo and behold, they didn't notice. So
Exactly.
um yeah, that's yeah.
Sometimes
So
you just
the
ask for
experience,
forgiveness.
exactly.
Yeah.
I will. A lot of the time you have to
Yeah.
ask for forgiveness because if you ask for permission, you can get in more trouble. So
Uh-huh. Yeah.
yeah.
So tell
And yeah.
me, what's your biggest goal right now? Just in general. Doesn't have work
Hmm.
related, life related. What's your biggest goal right now?
Um my biggest goal would it's probably more of a job change slash way of life change, you know.
Yeah.
I would love to go back to making documentaries. That's what I graduated on,
Oh,
and
nice.
I just had this conversation with a documentarian who came into the office this week. Um, who they had done this very short documentary on Stonewall, and they were working now on a new project around miscarriages. And
Oh,
I
wow.
had done my documentary thesis on tattoo therapy, which is still very much a vague concept,
Yeah.
but the way I interpreted it was going to meet people who have scars from either self-harm, accidents, surgeries, and they transform their body and transform that scar with a tattoo, and
Oh,
all of a
wow.
sudden it can take a whole new other meaning.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a way to reclaim it, to reclaim your body, and to kind of get back a sense of ownership too of something that was exterior to you, or so that's definitely still something that's lingering in the back of my mind,
Yeah.
and that's been lingering for a few years. But having talked with this documentarian this week, it kind of brought a lot of things back to the surface. And that's yeah, it was a small format documentary, 10 minutes, and it was just based around one person. But I would really love to eventually make this a feature, explore other relationships, other people that have different relationships to the tattoo.
Yeah.
The person that I was following in this case was she was covering self-harm scars, but you have a whole other array of reasons of why you would want to cover a scar.
Yeah.
So I
That's
think
very cool.
yeah, it's something I want to do something that brings me close to people, and I think I have a certain nick for it, a certain nick for intimacy, and kind of bringing that to the surface and hoping to make sense of it.
Hmm.
Um, so that's something that I want to go back to. I think down the road, but I know it's a whole other ball game
Yeah.
because finding producers is
Yeah.
hard,
Yeah.
and it's something that I would have to really re-emerge myself in, and maybe that would not be compatible with my production job that I have right now. But that would be kind of like professionally, that would be a goal of mine.
Yeah.
Um, but lifestyle wise, it would be more, after the documentary, doing kind of having a refuge or sanctuary for dogs and all other kinds of animals and people too. I don't care.
Yeah,
Just some kind of living situation that's not as crazy as living in New York City, and that's more central around autosufficiency, food wise. I'm talking like
yeah,
you know, and yeah, animal welfare kind of thing. Yeah,
that's
I
cool.
think it doesn't really have a lot to do with my
That's
current job.
okay. That's okay. It didn't have to. That is completely okay.
No,
All right, I'm going to
yeah,
ask you the last question.
yeah.
And what is the strangest or coolest or most unusual thing that's happened to you since you've been in this whole world, this whole business?
Oh, it's a good question. Coolest I want to say is definitely being able to make like a real difference with that project with Pedigree.
Yeah.
Um, it really reunited my big trifecta, pets, music, and adoption slash animal welfare and all that stuff. So that's definitely something I want to. Yeah, the coolest thing is probably that you're able to have a real impact on something. It's not you personally, but the work that you
Right.
participate
Yeah.
on. That has been the coolest thing to see that it has real impact. Um,
Well, that's great.
the less cool thing,
Yeah.
because it's an industry that comes with very cool things and not so cool
Yeah.
things, right? The less good thing, I would say, not being able to work with certain people because they're not open to working with other people. I want to
Oh,
say
yeah.
it's a very special type of character that I've come across more than once. Not necessarily in the photographer range, but whether it's production or post or whatever, you can deal with some pretty weird people,
Oh, yeah.
and it's sometimes it's not so cool, and but you still have to go with it and deal with it for the months or 2 months that you're doing this production for.
Mhm.
I would say it's the one thing is that yes, you don't necessarily get to pick the people you work with, and most of the time, people are generally have a character that match their job, but sometimes they don't. They
Yeah.
really don't, and so it's complicated. So yeah,
You find that those
coolest thing
people
would be
don't last that long at the job, or these people have been doing it forever? Because it seems like
I don't know.
people who have been doing it for a while tend to have more of an attitude or can
Yeah,
because they could get
maybe.
away with it back in the 80s, early 90s, 70s, wherever. Now I don't think you can get by with having that kind of attitude as
Mm,
much as you used to be able to back then. Because you used to hear
I
about
agree with you.
photographers and creative directors who would just rip you apart. And
Yeah,
you don't really hear that much anymore about that kind of stuff.
not anymore, but they still exist.
Oh yeah.
I think the ones that are there is the ones that have been here for a while
Yeah.
and that are used to doing it like that.
Yeah.
So can't blame them that much. But I can't imagine that it's nice to work like that.
Yeah.
Like I just can't. Like I feel for people who don't seem like they're happy in what they're doing, and being very snippy and all that stuff doesn't make it look like you're happy in what you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Well, thank you.
there's mostly amazing people, I would say.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I agree. Yeah, I work with mostly unbelievable, great people. And like anything,
Yeah,
like you said, occasionally you get some people that you're just like, yeah, I don't want to work with you again. I'm going to get through this job, but hopefully we don't have to work together
never see each other
again.
again. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Cleo, thank you for
Yeah.
doing this.
Oh, my pleasure, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.